Okay, so this is going to be a real quick video because I just want to talk about sourdough starter. So specifically when someone gives you sourdough starter, not when you start your own from scratch. So what do you do with it when somebody gives you a sourdough starter? Well, first thing that you're going to do is feed it. Of course, you've got to get something to put it in. So when I give somebody a sourdough starter, I usually give it in one of these jars, and I do that because these jars have some pretty cool notches on it. And so it just makes it so much easier to work with whenever you're feeding it, whenever you're trying to figure out if it has actually doubled in size. It's just so much easier to go by this jar because it's got the little markings on it. So today, I just put a little bit of sourdough starter in this just so I could show you how to do it. So when you get your starter, this is your baby. So, and just like any baby, the first thing that it wants is something to eat. So when you get your starter and once you get it home, the first thing you're going to do is feed it. Even if whoever gave it to you told you that they just fed it, then you're going to feed it anyway, okay? It's not going to hurt it. It's just going to help it. So this is probably 50 grams or so if I had to guess. I did not measure it. I just poured some over into a bag, and that's how I give it to people too. I don't measure it. I just put it into a baggie or this jar. So I'm going to transfer it to this jar, and then I'm going to feed it, okay? So let's do that. Okay, so I've got my scales out, and I like to use scales. If you have done sourdough before, you certainly don't need to use scales. You can pretty much go by what it looks like, but I like to use my scales. Even though when I'm in a hurry, sometimes I'll just throw some flour and water in a jar and kind of eyeball it. But more times than not, I do like to go by weight. So the first thing you're going to do is get your starter in a jar that's big enough to feed it.
I hope I got the right kind. There was a lot of different types.
Does it say pizza sauce?
Yeah, but there was a bunch of them said roasted garlic, bolognese, whatever. They only had the small one.
That looks exactly like what I had the last time. That's perfect. Thank you, baby.
All right.
And I've got a mess going on here, so you can just put that on the table, and I'll put it up here in a minute. Thank you. Now, after pouring my starter in here, it comes up to the first mark, which is about 100 grams. Again, that's another good reason to use a jar that's got markings on it. So go ahead and put it on your scale and then zero your scale out before you add any flour or water. Actually, I'm going to re-zero mine after I put that little funnel on there. So that I can not have to take it back off. So I'm going to feed this 50 grams of water and 50 grams of flour. If it goes over a little bit, I just do not worry about that. I just keep moving. Okay, there's 51 or 52 grams of flour. Now I'm going to add some water. So I'm just going to re-zero it. Again, it went over a little bit. I'm not going to worry about it. I actually like mine a little more on the moist side anyway. Just going to move that. Move the scales. Give it a stir. It almost always has lumps in it. You don't have to worry about that. Just leave them be. Well, let me show you how thick it is. Not even sure if you can tell. See how it's got lumps in it? And it's pretty well on the thick side. Then I stir mine up, use a little rubber spatula to get it off of the side. Now what you do with it from this point is going to depend on what you want. So if you just want to store it until later to make something, then you're going to put a lid on it. And I just use the regular canning lids. And when I screw this band on, I just don't screw it down tight. That way air can escape, because this is a fermented product, so gas does need to be able to escape. So don't screw your lid on tight. Just give it a, sometimes I'll twist it all the way down and then just give it a little half twist. It doesn't matter, just as long as air can escape it, or I mean the gases can escape. So now you can see that it's up to the little second divot in the glass, and just about every little notch is right at 100 grams. So now it's ready to refrigerate. If you're going to save it for later, you can put it in the refrigerator just like this, and you can feed it about once a week and it will be just fine. If you're going to bake bread, you can leave it out on the counter, and when it has doubled in size, again, that's when the little notches come in handy. You can wait till it has about doubled in size. It does not have to be exact. If it's a little less, that's fine. If it's a little more, that's fine. But the idea is to use it while it is at its peak. So if you get your jar and you look, and you can see where it has been all the way up to here because it's wet right there, but now it has gone all the way back down, then you may need to add some commercial yeast, or you may want to feed it again before you use it, because it's not going to be at its optimum. If you leave it out on the counter, you're going to need to feed it every day. Some people feed theirs twice a day. I've never done that just because I don't have time and I just don't think about it. And mine has always done fine with feeding it just once a day. So now let's talk about discard. I know you hear a lot of people talking about discard. So before you feed it each time, you're going to need to take some out. And the reason you need to take some out is because feeding a starter that has really gotten away from you, you have fed it a couple times but have still not used it, and you've got this much sourdough, you're going to have to feed this a lot of flour and water to keep it from starving to death. So that's one reason you need to keep a smaller amount of starter, because it's just so much easier to feed. Also, whenever you start getting a lot in your jar, it begins to get so heavy that it does not rise correctly. So a small amount is all you need. I know you've heard the saying, a little bit of leaven goes a long way. It really does. So back to discard. So if you do not bake bread often, you may have discard often, because you're going to have to get rid of some of this to be able to keep it fed. So if you're keeping it in the refrigerator, it's not going to be so bad because you're just feeding it once a week. So you'll take some out. Most people take it out down to about the first mark is where I do mine. And then whenever I feed it 50 grams of 50 water, it brings it right back up to the second notch in my jar. There's so many different ways that you can do it. You do not have to do it the way that I do it. It is not the wrong way or the right way. It is my way. So if you don't like the idea of feeding yours like that, get on YouTube and look up someone else's video, because there are so many different ones. So once you take your discard out, you're going to take out about half of what you see in this jar. You can put it in another jar. You can make something with it. You can make pancakes, biscuits. If you're going to make cornbread for supper, just put it in with your cornbread. There's so many different things you can do with it. Today I'm making pizza, so you can make pizza with it, pizza crust. So lots of different things you can do. But if you bake often, you're not going to have a discard, or I don't have a discard with the way that I do it. When it's time for me to make bread, I take out my starter, and I actually usually maintain a little bit more than this because I make a lot of bread at one time, and the recipe that I use calls for 2 cups. So whenever I feed mine, I try to make sure that I have a minimum of 2 cups after it's been fed. So anyway, I used to have a discard, and I would use it though in sourdough discard recipes. They're all over the internet. You can find them anywhere. When I make my bread, I take it out of the refrigerator and I feed whatever I have in the jar. I think Alexa's talking to me. So I take it out of the refrigerator. I let it get up to room temperature. Then I will feed it. And then about 4 hours later is whenever I am able to use it. That's about what mine does. I think every household has different temperatures. It has different moisture in the air. And so your sourdough is going to be ready to go at a different time than it may be in someone else's house. So mine's typically ready to be used in about 4 hours. So take it out, let it come to room temperature, then feed it, and then in about 4 hours I'll be ready to use it. And if it has been a long time since you have fed your starter and it's been in the refrigerator, hey, listen, I have left mine in the refrigerator for weeks at a time because I forgot about it. Then I'd pull it out, feed it, and then still be able to use it. It will actually last for a long time. Sourdough does really good fasting. Anyway, now my sourdough does not have any liquid on top, but sometimes you will see a liquid begin to form on the top of your sourdough starter. And when you see that, just know that it means your sourdough starter is hungry. That liquid is called hooch, and it just develops on the top of your sourdough starter whenever it has devoured all of the nutrients out of the flour, and then it just begins to leave a liquid at the top. You can pour that liquid off if you want to before you stir it up and reuse it. I like to leave mine in there because that gives my breads a more pungent sourdough flavor that I actually love. So you can pour it off, you can stir it up in there. It does not matter, whatever you want to do, and it will be just fine. Then you're just going to pop it back in the refrigerator and leave it until you're ready to either bake again or until it's been about a week, and then you'll feed it again. And that's how you maintain a sourdough starter that someone has given you. So if you have any questions, just comment in the box below and I'll answer the best way I can. I think I've covered everything, but I'm not sure. So anyway, you all have a great day. God bless you. And good luck. And actually, just one more thing I wanted to tell you about your sourdough starter. So a friend of mine said that if you would name your sourdough starter, you know, a lot of people have names for their starters. If you would name it, then it makes it a little more personal and you may do a better job at taking care of it. So I have never named mine in the past, but this time I did. So mine's name is Dobie. So give your sourdough starter a name, make it personal, take good care of it. God bless.